Jujutsu Kaisen has dropped another bombshell that changes everything.
You're joking. Not another one? Oh, for God's sake, I can't stand this.
Just when we thought Yuji's Awakening claimed victory, Chapter 258 revealed Sukuna's new domain expansion. But that's not all. Yuji's family tree just got even more complicated, as it was confirmed he was born with Sukuna's finger infused in him, making Yuji technically his nephew, twin, and son all at the same time. However, to counter the domain, Yuji has unlocked a new ability whilst training, which he most definitely will need since Sukuna is cooking everyone with Fuga.
Oh my god, okay, it's happening!
Now, Adil's gone to go grab some fresh copium, as it's revealed Gojo created a unique RCT relay which spread out the toil it took on his brain, hence making it easy for him to heal himself. So you know what that means? The one who can make any impossible task possible might just be able to revive himself completely with the help of Shoko. But Gege being Gege instantly throws the copium right out the window when it's revealed there are cases where the cursed energy of the one healing rejects the process, and also cases where the cursed energy of the one being healed doesn't respond to the conversion. This is the Jujutsu equivalent to using compatible organs, blood types, and more when doctors explain life-saving operations. So yeah, take that as you will. Now, whilst you're tweaking learning that information, Sukuna is experiencing the same thing. Yuji's shrine and black flash pushed him to the edge, as the king can no longer regrow his arms. These punches attacked the boundary between Sukuna and Megami's souls, causing a drop in curse technique output, and he can't use RCT to the fullest. But pushing Sukuna into a corner caused his survival instincts to kick in. Throughout the fight, the plot brought in huge importance to the king's domain expansion being out of commission due to the brain damage Gojo caused. However, those with the notification bell on would know its return was gonna happen. You see, 2 weeks was just far too long for Gege to not glaze the king, so the sorcerer's hopes were squashed like a bug with Sukuna unleashing Malevolent Shrine. However, this is not a permanent return for the domain. It's more accurate to call this the last roar, because Sukuna is using adjusted hand signs, an undamaged part of the brain, and multiple binding vows to create a barrierless domain. This is a testament to Sukuna's skill, as it's a callback to chapter 223. The mastery of Jujutsu includes subtraction. Your skill is based on the ability to emit hand signs or incantations in order to activate a technique. So since Sukuna has only 2 right arms, being the binding vow merchant he is, he uses Gojo's Indra hand sign to solve the problem. And boy oh boy, it is literally hell. If we all just take a little trip down memory lane, in the Shibuya incident alone, Sukuna killed some 3,000 people within the short time frame of a few minutes that he took over Itadori. The entire area was flattened, which means similarly no buildings, no humans, just nothing survives the king. But as impressive as this is, it's evident that Sukuna's vows will have a very heavy cost. He needed to do this because he couldn't lock down Maki as a target, as she has 0 cursed energy. Hence, a binding vow accommodates for what he's lacking to have this high level barrier technique like usual. This way he can ensure that everything dies. As we can all tell, Sukuna has been establishing quite a few binding vows, such as the world-cutting slash, but it's clear that he doesn't even care about the cost at this point as long as he cuts up the people in front of him. He started questioning his own ideals due to Yuji in chapter 248, which is a similar motif that led to Toji's demise, where his pride had returned, resulting in straying from his path to death. But speaking of which, we go back in time to the Sorcerer's Round Table Conference, in which Hikari claims that RCT or anti-domain tricks are the only way anyone can remain in the fight. Which reminds me, where the heck is this dude? Well, to Hikari's statement, Choso brings up the fact that him and Yuji are Since Yuji devours his siblings, his body's usage of RCT will change dramatically. Whilst Hikari and Yuta run on autopilot, Shoko explains that she turns cursed energy into blood in order to regenerate and compensate for what's lost. Hence, Choso explains that once Yuji becomes like a cursed object, he will be able to use RCT without depending on the immense energy requirement. different. The main reason why many sorcerers can't create positive cursed energy is because of the huge toll it takes on their reserves. But since Yuji will overcome this hurdle, it'll become his biggest advantage over others as he swaps souls to train with someone who can use positive energy. Which brings us to the fact that the soul swapping we witnessed in chapter 222 is not because of Yuji.
Oh, DD, oh, what it is, oh!
Yeah, you'll never guess who this incredibly OP ability belongs to. This guy.
Are you serious right now, bro?
Ubi explains that even though his technique is teleportation of objects and people, it sees the body and soul as two different entities. Hence, he can change the souls of two marked people, given that they are willing to do so. So let me get this straight. You're telling me that without Ui, Sukuna would have won and their strategy would have crumbled?
Bullshit?
Gege must have known that the whole fanbase hated this dude because he is forcing us to like him. Bro is literally the MVP of this fight because he's not only working overtime to bring back the bodies of everyone including Gojo, but he also swapped Yuji's soul to get him all trained up. However, Yuji raises a valid question. Mahito's technique was such that the body and soul were interlinked to the point that changing one led to a change in the other. I mean, he experienced the contours of the soul himself and how that can affect the body. This is why it should not be possible to swap souls without some lingering effects. However, Ui clears that his technique can be compared to switching the contents of two boxes without even opening them. Well, at least we know what Yuta meant now when he said to Sukuna that they cheated in chapter 250, because they basically pulled off a Matrix thing and downloaded techniques into each other's body, which is actually something we predicted earlier. Editor, do the honors, would you?
As Yuji would be picking up all kinds of powers to master for the fight against Sukuna. Yuta, on the other hand, would be going to every other sorcerer to take their techniques.
However, we learn that Ui only has the free trial version of his curse technique, meaning he has a limit of 2 swaps per person in a month. So they have to be careful about their pairings. Gege is like, damn, I made this overpowered ass plot device that would fix literally every single problem in the manga if I just let Yuji cheat non-stop, so yeah. Let me limit the shit out of this.
He's out of line, but he's right.
As a result, the first person Yuji swapped with was Kusakabe, because not only is he the strongest grade 1 sorcerer without a cursed technique, but he's also an expert when it comes to simple domain. Remember, even Gojo complimented him on it. This allowed Kusakabe to improve Yuji's cursed energy control and teach his body simple domain. But you're probably wondering who the second person was. Now, before you say Gojo, it would not have been beneficial at all. First things first, Gojo is a complete freak who can do things people can't even begin to imagine, as we saw during this fight. Moreover, he has the 6 eyes, which is an ability that cannot be copied, and the whole fundamental aspect of swapping was to learn techniques that can be easily replicated to improve fighting abilities. The second person was actually Yuta switching with Yuji to learn cleave and teach Yuji RCT by using it in his body. This would also make Yuta familiar with Sukuna's gameplay to combat him better. Another point of evidence is the fact that the supreme cursed energy control learned from Kusakabe and Sukuna in Yuji's body would then be implanted in Yuta. In chapter 250, Yuta was targeting only a single person, being Sukuna, which he wasn't capable of before. However, chapter 258's huge revelations don't end there, as Kusakabe claims that Yuji has developed excellent learning speed and jujutsu understanding because of Sukuna's presence, not because of his innate talent. So yeah, there goes all the respect this man built up his entire career. But it's true. Chapter 257 revealed something huge that was totally glossed over. Not only was Yuji's father the soul of Sukuna's twin reincarnated, but Kenjaku had also sealed Sukuna's finger inside of Yuji before his birth. Which means that if we go by the timeline, then Yuji's school actually had the second finger, Gojo then fed him the third, the juvenile detention center was the fourth, and Sukuna sneakily devoured the fifth one at Yasuhachi Bridge. During the Shibuya incident, Mimiko and Nanako offered Sukuna the 6th finger, while the 10 fingers from Jogo took the total count to 16. But Sukuna still only had access to 15 fingers at this point, and I'll explain why in a second. We all believe that Uraume fed him 4 fingers, however it was actually only 3, and Sukuna had already taken the finger sealed inside of Yuji with him when he shifted to Megumi's body. That plus eating his own mummy compensated for the last finger, which was eaten up by Rika. Now you might be wondering, why did Sukuna reincarnate so late if Yuji already had a finger in it? Well, the finger was sealed like other cursed objects that Kenjaku planted inside of the bodies of the incarnated sorcerers, and given the fact he was the one who taught Sukuna how to do this, it all makes sense. Essentially, the finger Yuji was born with had no effect and didn't activate until Kenjaku casts Idol Transfiguration in chapter 136. The same time that all of the incarnated sorcerers and non-sorcerers such as Hashimo, Yorizu, Higuruma, etc. that Kenjaku prepared for the Culling Games were activated. He even refers to the vessels with cursed objects as releasing 1,000 Yuji Itadoris into the world. This is why Yuji receives a Kogane before even going into a colony in chapter 160, which said that he was a player. In other words, his body was meant to be a vessel for Sukuna even before he ate the first finger at high school. We all thought what Megami felt in the first chapter was just the remnant cursed energy that rubbed off on Yuji due to touching Sukuna's finger, but it was the real thing after all. However, since the finger Yuji ate was already unsealed, Sukuna reincarnated early, which wasn't really an issue since the sealed finger inside Yuji's body acted as a failsafe so that Sukuna would be reincarnated no matter what once the Culling Games started. You gotta hand it to Kenjaku, right? The devil works hard, but this man, he works harder.
I don't want peace. I want problems, always!
So even though he doesn't remember it consciously, Yuji's body is trained to fight and used curse techniques like a special grade sorcerer now. This is why he will be able to grasp concepts at lightning speed, starting with Kusakabe's simple domain, which Yuji uses to battle Sukuna's domain. Like teacher, like student. This comparison is very accurate because just like Gojo realized the difference between his and Sukuna's curse technique usage, Yuji also instantly remarks that he can tell the domain is incomplete. He realized that despite the destructive barrage, there must certainly be some opening in the barrier and that everyone needs to endure this onslaught. As he says this, Choso, Ino, Maki Miwa, everyone on the battlefield tries to make it through this attack, but Yuji's simple domain falls apart. Hence, Sukuna's slashes instantly cut his leg apart, but our boy is the embodiment of never giving up. Even though he just had his foot cut off, he uses blood manipulation to pull the leg back in and regenerate it back together using RCT. This is something Choso showcased you could do against Kenjaku, and that's when we learn that there's some hope after all. The rush of binding vows that Sukuna created to use his domain has a limit, 99 seconds. Within this time limit, Malevolent Shrine will collapse once and for all, but Sukuna realizes there are too many ants crawling around him who have the courage to disrespect him and expect to live to see another day, which is why he's repaying the favor by using Fuga. Shokugeki no Sukuna is here because he's just summoned flames to cook everyone, and I mean literally, because the Malevolent Kitchen is open for business. You see, Shrine can also be read as kitchen in Japanese because they are both mizushi, and it also has the old kanji for kitchen. The term tsushi was originally used to mean a storage for cooking utensils. Moreover, Sukuna's last command means kitchen stove, and when we combine that with his Fuga command using the kanji for open, the full chant is Kamino Fuga, which means furnace opens. Hence, Malevolent Shrine is being referred to as the kitchen of overwhelming death appears. This also ties in with how Sukuna has used cooking metaphors multiple times in the story, such as calling Gojo a fish on a cutting board and slicing up his scales. He also called Gojo and Kashimo Zeitaku, which means greedy, but also luxurious, extravagant, as if craving caviar instead of the normal tuna, and saw Yuta as the main meal. In fact, all he's missing is something to wash this delicacy down with and give him the energy to keep fighting his ops. Luckily, by using code ABD on Gamersubs for a limited time only, he can enjoy free shipping on a nice big order. On top of this, Gege himself stated in the fanbook that Sukuna chose Iraume as his servant because she can cook really well. I guess Sukuna is just a biblically accurate Gordon Ramsay in Hell's Kitchen. I 100% expect to see this in the next chapter.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
But by looking at this holistically, Sukuna's love for eating, his 2 knives imagery for slashes, the specialized fire, and even having a personal chef all point to the fact that his curse technique is literally cooking, slashing and cutting up the enemies and flames to cook and burn them. Your curse technique depends on yourself and how you understand things. Before Sukuna was born, the first thing he did was chomp down on his twin brother, and so as he's been eating since literally the beginning of his life, it explains why his technique is all to do with food. No, seriously, let me cook. or should I say let Sukuna cook, as he sees his opponent as plates of food, hence why his usage of cutting is so easygoing. You compare this to Yuji's interpretation of the same technique, and he needs instructions on where to cut neatly. Sukuna uses it to just carelessly tear apart his food, whilst Yuji is delicate to not harm others. Speaking of which, he will definitely use these flames as his sure hit attack now. He might be able to manipulate the fire to take another shape, like how he manipulated Cleave into spider threads, or so that he can land as much severe damage as possible all at once. Rather than using an arrow, he might just burn the whole area up so that even if his opponents are not dead, they'll be out of commission for good, and then he can just mess around with them like the insects they are. But if you want to enjoy even more peak fiction, watch this video about how Kafka became the strongest kaiju ever